Welcome, welcome, welcome to your 20th edition of the RO Sports Show on Thursday, June 14th. Our RO Sports Show, as always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I'm your host, Matt Harrelson. To my right, Bobby Deaver joining us tonight. And to his right, our two regulars, Jeremy McKenzie and Russell Parker. So I hope everybody out there had a great week. Of course, we kind of anticipated that the finals may be over by the time we got here, although I didn't really think it was going to be that quick, but now we know that it was. Cleveland Cavaliers are no more. So plenty to talk about as far as the NBA Finals and the NBA moving forward as we get closer and closer to the July free agency period. But just to start out, let me start with you, Bobby. Did Cleveland just flat out quit?
Well, when LeBron in his first game put up 51 points and they had the big flub at the end, because I always thought during the whole series they were going to take one game or two.
Right.
It wasn't going to be a sweep. But knowing and seeing some of the video that came out after that game and then hearing about said injury of his hand, it just seemed like that was the game that set the whole series, because the next game he's coming in tired and they're up 2-0, and it seemed downhill from there. It was that game one where he scored 51 and they had a chance at the end was pretty much sealed the deal.
Yeah, and you could see, we talked about this last week, but body language, especially once that video came out, was a big key of that. And one of the points we made, or I made at least, was, LeBron's supposed to be the leader of the team. His body language rubbed off on the rest of them. What do you think? I mean, was body language the key factor? Do you think they quit?
I believe they quit because, you look at a guy who put up over 30-some points a game of each of the 4 games, and to the degree where you put a team on your shoulder and your team didn't really help you out in any kind of way besides Kevin Love, so that kind of played a big factor as well.
Yeah, I totally believe that the Cavs were totally overmatched. This was actually the first time that a team has been swept in the finals since the Spurs did it in 2007. So
Who was that against?
I don't remember. But
I do. I remember when that happened. I watched that game.
Yeah, just another one on that record for him. But I'm going to send the same question to you, Russell. I mean, being swept in the finals, you're supposed to be the team representing the East. I know it's LeBron. He didn't really get much help, but did they quit?
Yeah, I think they did. I don't really want to call it quit. I think maybe just kind of ran out of gas finally, maybe. And he just got tired of having to carry his whole team through the playoffs, essentially the whole playoffs, really, and then he gets into the playoff to the finals, and then he's LeBron's trying and he's doing his best.
Right.
The other guys, they just can't get up there and show off like they should be able to, in a final game. So I don't say he quit. I think he just finally ran out of gas.
And I want to throw out the stats. LeBron James for the 2018 finals, he averaged 34 points per game, 10 assists per game, and 8.5 rebounds per game. What else can the man do?
Those are MVP numbers.
Yeah.
And going back to the point, when we were going into the series, I think we all thought that the Western Finals were the championship series.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thought it was going to be a steal.
Yeah.
It would be a steal if Cleveland would have won any games, of course, if they won the whole thing. But to Russell's point is, those are MVP numbers. I don't think he quit. It was about the third quarter of the last game. That's when you started seeing LeBron James kind of accepting his own demise.
Yeah.
And in that quarter, I started watching. I was like, it looked like they quit the fourth quarter. But until then, I think he was playing as hard as he could.
And I remember I went on social media on Friday in the middle of the third quarter, and I just said, "Congrats, Warriors! This game's over. The series is over in the third quarter." Because, like you said, it was really tough losing that first game when they had them right there in the grass. Of course, we know now J.R. Smith made a bonehead play, went into overtime, they eventually lose. But I also want to throw this out there. LeBron James, as we know now, punched a blackboard after Game 1 and suffered a serious hand injury, and he actually had a brace that he had on I guess after Game 4. Come to find out, he said he played the last 3 games with a broken hand.
That is amazing that they were able to hide that, because that would have been the storyline for every single game.
Could you imagine if LeBron actually got taken out of the games because of that? And then Cleveland would have been more embarrassed than they are
Cleveland would have got swept in 3.
Or just every question that they got asked would have been about his hand and a hand update.
And he knew that.
And so I think he knew and the team knew somehow. I think Kerr said that they knew. So the fact that it would remain under wraps like that is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in this digital age that we live in.
Yeah.
That it wasn't until after the game that
Now, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just going to throw this out there for anybody that wants to answer. I just read off those numbers. Those are huge numbers for anybody. But with LeBron having what amounts to a broken hand, did that affect the outcome at all?
No, I was so it's the same thing.
You couldn't tell because of the level of his game.
Yeah.
Hey, it could have been 5-10 more points. You don't know.
Right.
But would that have been enough to stop Golden State in the end?
Probably not. And I'm starting to think if everybody else on LeBron's team had broken hands because he was getting. I mean,
Pretty
it's
much.
the same thing we've seen pretty much this whole season is that LeBron just gotten no help. You know, you expect JR to maybe step it up, and I know Jeff Green had a couple of good games in
He
there.
was afraid
but-
to shoot in the second game, talking about JR. I mean,
Yeah.
it looked like he wasn't even there.
And I don't know what the stats are, but watching Game 4 this past Friday, which is kind of crazy to believe it's already been almost a week, but it just seems like Cleveland was just jacking threes up there, and they weren't playing a lick of defense. They weren't going for rebounds. Not going back to body language, it really just seemed like they just said, you know what? We're done. It's time for the Warriors to take over for another year and win the third championship. I mean, does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Third quarter, I'll give it that to the last game. The rest of the team I can't speak for, but LeBron James did not. It didn't look like he gave up. I mean, that would have been much worse on his legacy. than
I
what
feel like
happened.
the rest of the team gave up after game one because that was their
Yeah.
one shot to not only win a game but steal one in Golden State, and they let it slip through their fingers. Now, of course, we're going to talk about Cleveland and LeBron's future moving forward, but let's talk about the Warriors for a minute. Of course, as we know now, Kevin Durant was awarded the Finals MVP. He's now won back-to-back Finals MVP. Let me flip this question out there: is KD now the best player in the league?
Second best.
Behind LeBron now?
Yes. No. LeBron then Kevin Durant.
That's what I'm saying. He's behind LeBron as
Yes.
far as 1 and 2. What do you think?
The top 5 of the NBA always kind of switches to me almost month to month. I mean, right now at this moment, yes, but I'm sure at the beginning of the next season I'll already be looking to have my eyes on somebody else.
All right.
But you can't argue with Durant though.
What do you
Being a
think,
hot
Russell?
pick.
KD better than LeBron now?
Well, I say that Golden State, they probably don't even need somebody LeBron with him on the team already. They really don't need him because they can win a game against him, but don't really need him at this point.
Well, see, that was my argument against whether he should be MVP or not.
Yeah.
And then actually went back and forth with this because whether it would be Curry or him because
Right.
Curry was outstanding in third quarters. He
was.
had 20 points before the end of the last game. It was like, so should it be Curry? But then the more I thought about it, I was like, Durant was a steady one. I'm more convinced now than I was a week ago after letting it set in that
Yeah.
Durant was a huge part of this last championship or last
Yeah.
two
And
championships.
And there was one game where KD put up 45 points. There was another one where
third win.
Yeah, I think game 4 he had a triple-double. So, I mean, you can make a case for either one. I will throw this out there since you mentioned Steph Curry. He is now the only the eighth player in NBA history to have 3 titles and multiple MVPs. So, you were talking about your top 5. Is Curry in there?
Well, yeah, I mean, like but again, if you asked me 3 years ago, Curry would have been number 2.
Okay.
And now you got Durant, so there's a mix of guys that are always going to be up
Yes.
there. There's going to be somebody going, well, how are you relieving Westbrook or Harden out, or
Right.
they're going to name other players. But after seeing the championships of these two teams, there's no problem with me taking LeBron, Durant, Curry.
By the way, let me just throw this out there. Can you guys imagine an Oklahoma City Thunder team with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook still
Yes.
together?
Yeah, often.
That would be your superpower now, would it not?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously things have happened. Guys have gone their own way, but I would think the Thunder would be unstoppable at this point.
3 season MVPs, just
Yeah,
right there,
yeah.
on one team not too long
And you
ago.
throw in like a Serge Ibaka or whoever else in there. You could basically just pick up the 4 of us and play the bench. They'd be good to go.
It's hard. It's hard being a Hornets fan, but to be an Oklahoma City fan and watch that go through their fingertips,
Yeah.
it's kind of going to hurt for a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, speaking of the Hornets, actually, we've talked about this several times. What the Cavs' future is going to be? Where's LeBron going? And the reason I mentioned the Celtics or the Hornets, on Jalen and Jacoby. I don't know if you guys watched this, but David Jacoby made a case as to why the Hornets should go after LeBron James. His main scenario was he comes there, he's with Michael Jordan to kind of pick each other's brains and follow that legacy. Is this going to happen? I seriously doubt it. But I know I've asked you guys this several times. But does LeBron stay in Cleveland? And if not, at this point right now, where do you think he goes?
This point to me is like would be like third big contract or one of his last ones essentially. I don't know the way he was talking this, but this one's more focused. I think Dwayne Wade put it best was he doesn't have any inside tracks, but if he did, it's going to be more on his family decision, more of his wife and that type of decision, whether they want to move again, and there's going to be more of a worrying about schools more so than his legacy at this point.
Right.
And but he did make a comment where he said that it would be a dream of his to actually be able to play in the NBA with his son.
Yeah.
So if he has to last that long, then he might want to go to another team where he could be the third wheel and not the leader. Because if he stays in Cleveland, he's actually going to have to be the main player for years, no matter what happens, no matter who they draft coming up. So it's going to be interesting.
His son, what is he, like junior high age, middle school age, something like that?
Well, yeah, but he's already committed to school.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure they were lining up for LeBron Jr.
Chipping it, nipping the butt on that one.
But what do you think, Jeremy? I mean, is Cleveland going to be able to entice James to stay, or do you think he heads somewhere else?
I think right now, to this degree, in his career at 32 years old, you already got nothing to prove. I can see a scenario where he can leave Cleveland and go somewhere try to compete for a championship.
Lakers, Houston, stay in the East. What do you think?
I think if push comes to shove, if he wants to stay in the East and have his predominance there, I think he'll probably go somewhere like Philly or Boston.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What do you think, Russell?
Oh, I don't think he's staying at all. I think he's packing up his bags right now as we speak. But the question is where, and I have to say it's probably somewhere in the West where he can compete a little bit more there, but not having to carry a team. And I think the West is probably more stronger than the East, so he can go to the West and kind of kick it back just a little bit, not have to be the leader of the team, still be a leader, but not be like the top dog of the whole thing where everybody's relying on you. So maybe the Lakers or something
to answer where, though, is my problem with this question is I think he should stay in the East. Like, that would be my feeling if I was him to stay in the East. But
got an easier path that way.
What are the odds that Philadelphia is going to be the city that pulls him into there? And I mean, that would be a good fit. It looks good on paper. But him following Kyrie to Boston, that would be the most hilarious thing to me. I would love to see it happen, but is it going to happen?
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that, Bobby, because a report came out yesterday that the Celtics had made an offer for Kawhi Leonard. Now, the Spurs turned it down, but what that did in turn was make people wonder, is Kyrie on the move? Because you saw what they did without him in the playoffs. Could we see a scenario where Kyrie ends up somewhere else? Maybe LeBron goes to Boston.
Boston's always going to have a backup plan right now because I think it's a thing of Kyrie is in a situation where if he would get an extension now, it would actually be for less years than if he'd wait. So, for instance, it would be 4+1 now, but if he waits a year, it ends up turning to 5+1, so it's a 6-year deal instead of a 5-year deal. So I think that's the only reason when he had said something about it doesn't make sense to look at extension, more about my health.
Yeah.
And so them having backup plans makes complete sense. Well, why wouldn't you trade somebody like Kyrie in the last if you could get a player already under contract? But more than likely, I think Kyrie's going to stay put.
Well, yeah, but as far as trading, he might not have any say-so in it,
right.
Because he didn't when it came to going from Cleveland to Boston. I do want to say this, LeBron's right. His family's going to have a lot to do with this decision.
Yes.
He has a big house that he just built in L.A. I think that may play into it a little bit. I personally think going to the Lakers would be a mistake just because of the legacy that's already there, and if he's not able to win at least one championship, we're going to be having the same conversation like, well, LeBron, he's not the greatest, whatever that conversation may be. I think staying in the East is his best option because it does give him the easiest path to another championship. Of course, as we've seen, he still keeps running into Golden State, or maybe even Houston in the future. I'm still going to stick to Philly. I've been saying that for a while now. Pairing him up with two young studs and Embiid and Ben Simmons, I think would allow LeBron to not have to be the man every night. Play less games because let's face it, he's got a lot of miles on his legs now. Another team that I think could come to the forefront is the Knicks. I can see the Knicks pairing him up with the Unicorn, and maybe they can build something in New York because there's not as much pressure there as there are in other cities.
Well, you remember years ago when he left the first time to Cleveland, there was a billboard sign like LeBron come to New York.
Yeah.
And everybody thought at the time that he was going to go to New York, which that did not happen because he went to Miami. But I think it's going to be a scenario where, like you say, I think it's going to be another repeat when he left for Cleveland, went to Miami the first time and paired it with Bosh and Wade. And I think that's what he wants to do the same thing, to perform a big three.
Let me ask you guys a question. That first go-around when he ended up going to Miami, as we know now, and we know already, these guys talk to one another outside of the media. Mm-hmm. They kind of, not collude, but they get together and figure out where you're going to go. All right, well, I might try to go there too. You think that's going to happen this year where the guys like Kawhi, like Chris Paul, like Paul George are phoning up LeBron and saying, hey, man, what are you thinking? Should we all get together somewhere?
It seems to happen more in years that there's international basketball. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those are the ones that big. When they have all-star breaks, international basketball, that's when they seem to be able to have the most chance to do that. So, in the years they don't, it's a little less, I believe.
Yeah. You were going to say something?
I think, like you said just a little while ago, I think it's going to come a scenario where, hey, which I could see a big 3 for him with LeBron, with Paul George, and probably with Chris Paul, and probably with Kawhi Leonard. I think that's going to end up happening soon down the road.
All right, and just to, because we got to go to break here, but just to finish the NBA talk, Russ, let me start with you. I'm going to ask you guys the same question. Is Golden State a dynasty now? Is it even a question?
No question. Certainly they are.
All right.
No.
Not yet. Still got to win one more?
And one more.
All right, what do you think?
Well, my rule is the winning of 3. That's all. That's the way I've always looked
So
at
they're
it.
there?
If you win the 4 championships, you won 3 of them. There's not going to be many teams that do that often. I mean, I don't remember the Celtics.
Right,
won
yeah,
6
that
in a row.
was
So,
before.
Well, you gotta look at
in my lifetime, it seems to have been.
Because you got to look at the Bulls of the 90s,
Spurs.
the Spurs and the Lakers of the 2000s, and then you got to look at Boston down at the late.
From the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
Russell
I
days.
think this will be very memorable because they flat out beat LeBron, and that's going to be huge
Handily.
at home.
Handily.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
stick
and
with
I
them.
think there's something to be said about that. And I agree. I think right now they're a dynasty. And here's the thing: I don't see the band breaking up anytime soon. So that
No.
dynasty, if people don't agree on it now, they will in the next 2
Yeah.
or 3 years when they picked up possibly 1 or 2 more championships.
And talk about teammates. I mean, you're talking about Green was saying that he gave up money so they could chase Durant, and then now they're saying Durant, we're going to give you the house if you
Yeah.
want it.
I think if anything, this NBA Finals proved the point that teamwork wins versus just one great player.
True, but it also helps when your team is made up of 4 great players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, as we get moving further into the summer, we're going to continue talking about free agency, start to see where everybody goes, how much money they're going to make. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens because as we saw the first time LeBron was up for free agency, ended up going to Miami. Who knows where he'll end up this time? But when we come back from the break, we're going to take an early look at the Heisman favorites for next year's college football season. We're also going to talk about a plethora of sports. Justify winning the Triple Crown, the Washington Capitals winning the Stanley Cup. The World Cup in soccer begins today. So lots to talk about, all that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show.
At Richmond Community College, we can prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
My name is Jim Leach, and we have been using the Tim Hayden Construction Company for the last several years.
My name is Dave Owens and my wife Beth. We had some damage here at our place in Knollwood Village.
January 2nd, our house flooded upstairs coming through to the first floor.
Tim has responded very quickly with his team of people.
Our repairs went extremely well.
Tim made a very difficult situation much easier for us.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, as always brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, as I mentioned before the break, we've got a bunch of different topics here that we're going to run through. We'll call it the RO Sports Rundown, I suppose. But I wanted to start off with early Heisman candidates have come out. Of course, college football will be here before we know it. And
Less
I just
than
want
100 days.
Yeah, how much?
Less than 100.
Less than 100 days.
You've been
Wow.
keeping up with the times, ain't you?
Yeah. We're probably closer to like 85 days
Yeah.
now,
Okay.
something like that. So yeah, it'll be here before you know it. A lot of big matchups coming, but of course, Heisman Trophy winners is a big thing that people talk about. So we're going to talk about it as well. Now, right now, as we sit, the early favorite is Stanford's running back Bryce Love, who we know now followed up Christian McCaffrey very well. He's the early favorite for Heisman at 5-1 odds. Second up is Wisconsin's running back Jonathan Taylor, who's just a sophomore. He killed it last year for them as a freshman. He's at 7-1. Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama, their
Roll
quarterback.
Tide.
He's a 10-1 favorite. And then behind him, Georgia sophomore quarterback Jake Fromm, Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert, and Arizona dynamic quarterback and dual threat Khalil Tate are all 14-1 odds. Now, I want to bring this up. The thing that stuck out to me the most is the fact that Tua's on here. Jalen Hurts hasn't officially given up this spot yet, has he?
No, he hasn't. I mean, I still think Tua is going to probably kind of be that second string for now as we start the game this week, this year. But I think Saban will still use them dual. So when they're doing dual quarterback, he's probably going to drop his chances of winning the Heisman because he's not doing the whole full time.
No, he's not the future back.
That's true, but let me ask you this, Jeremy. The fact that Vegas has Tua on here makes me think that they think he's going to be the full-time starter and run away with it. What do you think?
I think it's gonna come a scenario where, hey, you the future back, and I think if you put up numbers like you did last year, you should, go win the Heisman.
I just find it interesting because I think Saban will try to run a 2-quarterback system.
Yeah.
Until you can figure out which one's the better one.
Yeah, I just find it very interesting because Vegas a lot of times is right about these sort of things.
But they don't know Saban. I don't think.
Well, and I mean, let's
really
face it. I guarantee you, if we went back and looked at all the early Heisman favorites, like probably maybe half of them were right. Because every year there's a guy that comes along, pops up that we didn't even think about, ends up winning the Heisman, that sort of thing. But I don't know. I just found it very interesting. That was the name that stuck out to me the most, was that Tua was on here. Curious how far down Jalen is, if he's even in the conversation.
And I really don't think there's many Alabama players that will be part of that conversation throughout the season because Alabama doesn't usually build up a single player. They build up the entire team. And it's hard to single somebody out. I mean, yeah, you got your quarterbacks, but everybody's going to single the quarterbacks for every team. It doesn't matter what.
Although I would have expected to see an Alabama running back on here because Derrick Henry's won it. Mark Ingram's won a Heisman. Both.
But A.J. McCarron has been part of it before.
And Trent Richardson.
Yeah, but he didn't win though.
Yeah, but he's been part of the conversation. So.
Sure. But, I mean, Julio Jones was part of the conversation. Some of their defensive players, which, by the way, how about some love for defensive players? You never see a defensive guy get up there.
It's very rare because the last one I ever known to win a Heisman for defense was Charles Woodson from Michigan.
He was. I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
And even he played special teams and a little offense.
Yeah.
Although I do want to throw this out there. Ed Oliver, who is the probably going to be the number 1 defensive end coming out of the draft this next year. He plays at Houston. He may have a shot at it just because this is a guy that gets you almost 20 sacks a season, which is just unheard of.
Yeah.
Now, he plays in a lesser conference, if you will, but still one of the top players out there. So, again, we'll keep track of this and probably have like a Heisman watch of our own as we go through into college football, since this will be the first football season for the RO Sports Show, which I'm excited for. Now, going to stay in the NCAA, but we're going to move to baseball. Of course, we've been keeping track of all the teams from the Carolinas that made it. We started out with 10. This past week, we were down to 3, which was UNC, Duke, and South Carolina. Unfortunately, for any Duke or Gamecock fans, they are now out, not heading to Omaha, but the UNC Tar Heels are. So I want to give them a shout out, of course. UNC is going to be moving on to play in Omaha against the Oregon State Beavers, who are ranked number 3 overall. Think they got a shot at getting the championship?
Just because I'm a Tar Heel fan, I got to go for them.
Right.
I got they got to get this win. Go Tar Heels. We ain't had a title this year, so we didn't get one in baseball.
All right, Russell, you're not a Tar Heel fan, so what do you think?
I'm an SEC fan, and I'm probably going to go ahead and go with Florida on this one because I think they're number 1 for a reason. They know what they're doing.
All right.
So I'm going to go with the Gators here.
Yeah, Florida was almost a foregone conclusion, although Florida has had a little bit of trouble in the tournament. Of course, another team that we brought up from the state of Florida was Stetson. North Carolina blew through them and was the first team to get into the College World Series. So go Tar Heels. Now, moving on, we've talked about this before, but the U.S. Open is the next big golf tournament for the PGA tournament. They're going to be in Shinnecock Hills Country Club in the Hamptons of New York. What's that?
Finally here.
Finally here. Yeah, we've been counting it down for a while since the Masters. But, of course, they just finished up the St. Jude Classic. Dustin Johnson ran away with it, won by 5 strokes. Of course, we've been talking about DJ a little bit as being one of those top guys, could possibly win the U.S. Open. I do want to throw this out there, that Tiger Woods is going to be playing the first 2 rounds of the U.S. Open with the 2 most recent number 1 ranked players, Justin Thomas and Dustin Johnson. So, we've talked about this before. In golf, a lot of times you play up or down to your competition. Tiger got a shot?
He has a shot. Let Father Time have his shot.
All right. What do you think?
I think he's got a shot. He's probably been building up to this moment to go out there and win this whole tournament. I think he can do it.
All right, let me throw another set of players out there that are going to. First of all, let me say this: Johnson, Thomas, and Woods are all teeing off at 1:47 p.m. So that'll be in the afternoon. Of course, let's see. Phil Mickelson, Jordan Spieth, and Rory McIlroy will be starting off on the 10th tee at 8 o'clock. So they're doing a shotgun start. Now, that's 3 players who each hold 3 of the 4 majors. Any one of those might have a chance?
I think Phil Mickelson has a shot at it.
I think they all got a chance. But I think the ones who are going to really prevail here is going to have to be somebody who's been in those type of situations where the pressure's on. They're going to have to play they're going to play all 4 rounds like to perfection. And this is the Open, and everybody's going to be playing their best. But I think the one who can really get it done is Jordan Spieth.
And again, you brought up a good point. Any of these 6 guys could win it. Mickelson, a 6-time runner-up at the U.S. Open, including in 1999 right up the road at Pinehurst when he lost to Payne Stewart on Father's Day. But this would complete the career Grand Slam for him with a victory. Now, I picked Mickelson to win when we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. I'm going to stick to it. I want to see one of the old guys get in there, although I do believe Dustin Johnson right now is on a roll, so look out for him as well. And of course, after that, then we'll be heading across the pond for what we call the British Open. They just call it the Open, which makes me wonder. I wonder if why we call ours the U.S. Open. Why don't we just call ours the Open?
Might be because
gets confusing.
I think maybe over in Scotland, I think is where it started. That's why they call it the Open there, because probably where the first one was at.
I think this year it's going to be at Carnoustie, which I believe is somewhere in the UK. I want to say it's in England, but all those confuse me. If it's not St. Andrews, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with it. But moving on, the World Cup. We're talking about soccer, which we don't necessarily talk about a whole lot, but the World Cup is starting today. This, of course, is a big deal for the entire world, obviously. Not so much this year for the United States because we're not even in it. Now, I'm not sure what happened there. You know, the United States, I feel like there's been a resurgency in soccer here in the United States. MLS is a really big deal now. Matter of fact, Charlotte was trying to get one of the MLS expansion teams this past year. But let me ask you guys this. Talking about the World Cup moving forward, in 2026, Canada, Mexico, and the United States are all going to host the 2026 World Cup. Now, I don't know that 3 countries have ever hosted this before, but I want to get your opinion on it. There's 16 host cities across 3 nations that are going to be able to have different tournaments in theirs. Closest one to us is going to be Nashville and Atlanta. But of course, you've got New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Baltimore, L.A., San Fran, Denver, Dallas. All the usuals. And then in Canada, you've got Montreal, Toronto, and Edmonton, and then Monterrey, Guadalajara, and Mexico City. Down in
Nashville
Mexico.
and Atlanta. That's not too far from here.
Not too far. Not too far. So what do you think about this? United States, along with these other countries, hosting a World Cup.
I think it's a great collaboration for 3 countries get together and have a big turnout for one time. It's like a one grand night only.
Absolutely. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is awesome. Having the host like that. I mean, of course, we can fit all of those. We can fit all of those games into our country, but it's awesome to see that we get to share that with other teams. The World Cup's all about bringing the world together.
Yeah.
And that's the North American continent being able to come together for that will be really awesome. And maybe we'll see that more in other regions of the world.
And not to get political, but I know Donald Trump, the president, has been talking about pulling us out of NAFTA. This may have to be the new North American Free Trade Agreement. So, but yeah, I love this too. I mean, it's like you said, it's bringing all of North America together. I agree that either one of these countries could have it on their own. I think it's a great collaboration. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. Perhaps we see something like this in the future. Let me ask you guys another question. Getting off of soccer for a second, do you ever see a scenario where the Olympics maybe try this? Because let's face it costs a lot of money to host a World Cup, to host the Olympics. If you're splitting it up between multiple countries that are close to one another, is that something that could work too?
I think there's gonna be a scenery where that can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of years ago they had the Olympics over in England. That's a small country to host all of it. And of course, you got to probably build more stadiums, and I believe Brazil did that as well. I feel like spreading it out, especially like up in Europe, one of them to England, one of them to France, Germany, kind of split like that. It just helps out financially for those countries to host that, and also help out with traffic. If everybody's in one spot, it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah. And, it is a lot of, even if it is between these three countries, it is still a lot of traveling. But nonetheless, I think this is a precedent that's going to be set. It's going to be great for the sport of soccer, especially in America, where, quite frankly, it's just not as popular as it is around the world. So,
And as a fan of a world team, you're not going to want to follow other teams. You're going to follow your team. So you're not going to go traveling everywhere. You'll be in that one spot unless they have to move to another venue, but that won't be too much of a big deal.
Absolutely. And, even though the United States isn't in this year's World Cup, they're playing over in Russia. So we'll try to keep track of that as we move forward and see which countries are going to be playing for that championship, because it's usually the same ones. It's your Brazils, your Spains, your Mexicos, your Italy, France, a lot of the same teams that tend to do well in the World Cup.
I'm going to pick France.
Going to take France.
Yeah.
And, they won one probably 10 years ago when they had Zidane on there when he headbutted the ref or headbutted the other player. Now, moving on to hockey, another couple of sports here we don't usually talk about, but the Washington Capitals just wrapped up the Stanley Cup, which, most people, it should be on the same level as the finals. Obviously, it's not here in America, but still a big deal for the D.C. area. They won the Stanley Cup. It's their first one. Alex Ovechkin, their captain, won the playoff MVP called the Conn Smythe Trophy, which is kind of like KD winning the NBA Finals MVP. So, of course, congratulations to them. But I want to talk about the team that they played real quick. Was the Las Vegas Golden Knights. This was their first year ever as an NHL team, and they made it all the way to the finals and only lost 4-2. You don't ever see that for an expansion team, do you?
Not since the Carolina Panthers back in the 90s, but
even then, they didn't play for a championship their first season, did they?
No, they in their second year. But I think this is going to be they sent a message to say, hey, even though we was a suspension team, make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they also open up the avenue for in the future for them. Hey, beware, because we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
And obviously, expansion teams don't come along very often, but does this kind of put it out there for other expansion teams, perhaps in hockey or other sports, to say, you know what, there is a path to success right off the bat?
Yeah.
Well, you got a brand new team where you're not really having to compete to take a spot on the team because there's an open spot already.
Right.
So players who are looking to prove themselves can take that spot and make something with it, and obviously they made something with it for sure.
Absolutely. So congratulations to the Capitals, obviously, but also congratulations to the Golden Knights, because I would have bet you, even in Vegas, there weren't many bets going for them to get to the Stanley Cup.
Did you see their WWE title belts, though?
I did.
Them and the Warriors both got some sweet side plates for their titles.
Yes, which I think is genius marketing by WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can
Every champion gets
you can put any logo on there. Very smart, Vince. Actually, I bet you that's more Triple H than Vince, don't you think? Yeah. And then to wrap up the RO Sports Rundown here, talking about the Triple Crown, horse racing, another sport we never talk about, but this is very significant because the horse Justify just won the Triple Crown on Sunday, which I think there's only been 12 horses to do that. They've been doing this for, about 120 years. So obviously that is significant. I want to throw this out there for you, and I want to get your opinion. Justify, the horse himself, is now the most lucrative horse. He's worth $75 million now.
Whoa.
Wow.
What would you do if you owned this horse? Would you stud him out?
No, I would use him. I would want my money, and I want it now. I would use it.
Yeah, I think you can justify selling that horse.
Absolutely.
Easily.
I think for $75 million, you're absolutely right. You could definitely justify selling him to somebody else.
Yes.
Although, for all we know, he might have some more races in him. Now, I know we're getting ready to go to break, but I want to throw this out there because we're going to talk about NASCAR when we come back. In horse racing, there was some talk that the guy that owns Justify owned another horse in the race, and there was some talk that other horse was maybe blocking for Justify's jockey. In NASCAR, that we see that all the time, don't we?
Yeah, you can see blocking monks.
Okay,
but
like
that, yeah.
there seems to be kind of a stink with it when it comes to horse racing. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think so. I think you should be racing. I mean, I would say horse racing is kind of more of that respectable type of sport where the fast horse is going to win. It shouldn't be any strategy to it other than trying to get a healthy horse. So.
Absolutely. 20 seconds. What do you think? I mean, is that justifiable? No pun intended.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and of course, there's only so much space in there, but racing is racing is racing. If the horse is blocking for you, you know what? You weren't fast enough. You should have ran around him. So. But that's going to do it for this segment. And as I mentioned, we're going to come back, and Russell and I are going to be talking NASCAR, and there's plenty to talk about. NASCAR not going to be racing next week for Father's Day, but there are some other races going on that Russell's going to tell us all about, all that and more when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection. friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Family Pharmacy is a local pharmacy that's been in business in Rockingham for over 10 years. Located in the Food Lion Shopping Center on US 1 North, we have easy access into the store and a drive-through for your convenience as well. You can download the official Family Pharmacy app at myfamilypharmacy.com, and we'll help you set it up to text you when your prescription is ready, and you can even set it up to fill your prescriptions when due. Our motto is we'll treat you like family, and it's something we truly mean. We take the same care in filling your prescription that we would take for our own family. Family Pharmacy, we'll treat you like family.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Hello, I'm Tammy Benson, and this is Nancy Bowling. And we're here to tell you about the wonderful service at hospice and what they have to bring. From the nursing services, to the medical director, to in-home aides, to a chaplain, to bereavement, to everything you can imagine. They were there to take care of it.
I cannot think of how the experience with hospice could have been any better professionally, spiritually.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics, and it's time to hit the tracks. So, I know we were at Michigan this past week, and it was rainy.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain up north. Of course, that caused the race to be rained out towards the end of it. After you run half the race and it starts raining, usually they'll call it then. And whoever's in the lead at the time is going to be declared a winner. And Clint Boyer was in the right place at the right time and stole a win.
How many laps did they actually get to? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head right now, but I know there's roughly about I think it might be about 200 laps in that race. So a little over 100 and something laps was in. And
well, guess what? I know what the number is.
Oh, good.
It's 129 laps that they ran.
All right.
Which I also read that they have to run at least 120 for it to count. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw that in the same sentence. So 129, very short race.
In that retrospect, because it's a 2-mile track.
Okay.
And it's 400 miles they race. So in retrospect, it does seem like a short race in number of laps,
but not really.
It's a big track for number of laps it is.
All right. So you mentioned that Boyer won, so we know that now. Who did you have last week when you predicted?
I picked Kyle Larson, who actually had a solid. I thought he had a solid race. I believe he even got close to he may even had the pole. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he ran solid. However, people started strategizing throughout the race because they knew rain was coming. And Clint Boyer was one of those teams where him and his crew chief figured out a way where they can put themselves in the front. And I believe they made a very interesting call. I believe they didn't go down pit road and they were actually having trouble with maybe some gas. Mm-hmm. And then they actually ended up winning it when the rain came. So they took a risk and they won.
Sometimes you got to take risks like that.
Yep.
Now, there's not going to be a NASCAR Cup Series race next week because of
Father's Day. Yep.
Okay, so that means that we now have officially 11 races left before we get to the playoffs, right? So 11 races left in the regular season. So let's take a look at the playoff standings and see where everybody's sitting right now.
Yeah. So Kevin Harvick is leading that. Of course, the more wins you have, the higher you are on the standings. Because when you get to the playoffs, the wins are going to matter a lot because they give you bonus points and bonus playoff points, which will tally up and give you your total standing. So Harvick's with 5. Kyle Busch, the second most winning driver right now, is 4. Boyer and Truex have a pair of wins, and then Logano and Austin Dillon have their wins. Of course, Austin Dillon has not won a race since Daytona, Daytona 500. And then you got a lot of drivers from Keselowski is in 7th, all the way down to the cutoff would be at is 16. So Alex Bowman is right now sitting inside at only 4 points ahead of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So the bottom four, or actually everybody else in the field from 17 all back, as of right now, they're not in. But
they could be.
They could be. If somebody gets a win that has not won a race yet, let's say Jay McMurray gets him a win, he will knock Stenhouse down out of it, or excuse me, Alex Bowman out of it. So right now there hasn't been very many winners this year, so everybody's kind of safe right now. But all it's going to take is one new winner, and it can bump somebody out.
Which obviously, just like in any other sport, we can expect to see quite a bit of movement in the next 11 or 12 weeks, right?
Oh yeah, certainly. Especially between the guys who are within 10 points of one another. Somebody like Eric Almirola and on up, where they got over 100 points ahead of the cutoff line. They're going to be sitting fine. They might actually make it, assuming there's not like 4 or 5 new winners from here on out, which I think is pretty doubtful to happen.
Yeah. Now, looking at the playoff standings, I want to move past that to your power rankings for NASCAR. Of course, each Tuesday night you can find Russell's power rankings for NASCAR on the RO Sports Show's Facebook page, so make sure to go on there if you haven't already. Go find it, like it, and share it with your friends. But you had some movement here. I think Harvick moved back up to the top, and of course Bowyer with the win, moving into the top 5 himself.
Yeah, Harvick had a better day than Kyle Busch. I don't think Kyle Busch had a good day at all this past Sunday. So I put Harvick back on top. Brad Keselowski showed some good standing there in Michigan. Of course, that's also his hometown, or home track rather.
Really?
So, yeah, he's from up that way. But I put him under because he actually had, I believe, top 5. Kurt Busch, I put him under as well because he's done really good. Wasn't expecting him to do that well as he did. Solid top 5 finish. I was debating on Clint Bowyer and Joe Logano because Logano showed some improvement. However, Clint Bowyer got the win, and I thought it was only right that he got put in because he worked the strategy out with his crew chief. They got the job done, and they got the win, and I think that it was deserving for a top 5.
Now, let me ask you this, because the name that I'm noticing that's not on your power rankings but is 5th in the playoff standings is your man Logano.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's still showing consistency. But I think he needs to get up there and get like a top 3 or something like that, just to really get me in there. I was debating on him and Clint Bowyer, but because Bowyer got the win, that was obviously going to jump him over Logano. Logano, if I had the top 10, Logano would be 6.
Gotcha. Now I'm gonna put you on the spot. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but there is no Cup race this Sunday. But do you know where they go after that?
It will be road course, Sonoma Raceway out in California.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll wait till next week to get a prediction from you, but of course, be thinking on that. Now, moving forward, actually looking back and moving forward, of course, the Cup Series, Monster Cup's not the only one that's out there. So let's start with the Truck Series.
Yeah, so the Cameron World Truck Series, they were down in Texas this past week, so they didn't travel up north with the Xfinity and the Cup Series. They had a very short race. These truck races are a lot more shorter. And personally, I enjoy the truck race a lot. So I think I'm going. Johnny Sauter got his 4th win this season. He's been dominating all season long. He's pretty much Kevin Harvick right now in the Truck Series. Also, I believe he was last year's championship winner. So there's only been 3 different winners as far as the truck teams go. Now the Cup drivers, they will sometimes jump back into the Truck Series and Xfinity Series during some weeks, and they're racing them. And like Kyle Busch, they'll dominate and then they'll win it. So it kind of, and for me, I don't really enjoy that, seeing the Cup drivers be on top and come down to the lower leagues.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like jumping from NFL to college level. It's
and then dominating and then going back.
So I'm not a fan of that. But I mean, there's only been 3 different winners. Noah Gragson and Brett Moffitt both have 1 win apiece. So they're doing pretty well and as far as their playoffs go, which is like 6 teams in it, so not too bad for them.
Let me ask you this. You said that the Truck Series didn't follow the rest of them. Are they all usually together in the same track?
Sometimes it happens like that. Usually at the start of the season with Daytona 500, all 3 series start from there. But Truck Series, they have a shorter schedule, and they even miss, like, maybe they can go almost a month without one race some points.
Okay.
And it's usually because of the fact that truck teams are underfunded. They don't get as much money for sponsorship. They don't get a lot of television coverage, so they don't really get the money to spend to have races every single week. So fortunately, NASCAR just recognizes that and doesn't have them racing every week. And usually they don't race. Well, they will sometimes try to make them race alongside the Cup Series to go follow the same week, but they don't always happen like that. So of course, Truck Series down in Texas is big. Of course, when NASCAR was down in Texas a couple of years ago, Truck Series was up here in Rockingham. So.
Okay. Now, looking at the Xfinity Series, Austin Dillon, you were just talking about how some of the guys will come down and then go back up. And I'm looking at your notes that the series leader, Elliott Sadler, has no wins. How does that happen?
Well, he's been very, very consistent, and of course, with the stage racing now that they put in place a couple of years ago, it's allowed drivers who do very well in consistency to rack up a lot of points. So he could be finishing second in these stages, racking up 9 points apiece.
Okay. And
that can help out a lot. I know he's very close to getting a win. I know he wants one badly. So.
Sure. But of course, I mean, if you're a NASCAR fan, Austin Dillon, who won at Michigan, and Elliott Sadler, those are pretty household names as far as NASCAR.
Yeah.
So
of course, Austin Dillon now, he's not a Cup driver, or he's a Cup driver, so he's not racing for a championship or points in the Xfinity Series.
Okay.
But I think some drivers they'll do that, just trying to get some experience on that track that they're going to be racing that, because Xfinity was at Michigan the day before the Cup race, so they can try to get some experience, learn something to help them out in the Cup race.
Now, both these series are going to Iowa next week, and I don't think I asked you, but for each one, you want to make a prediction?
I don't really try to make a lot of predictions off of it, but I will probably say maybe for the Xfinity Series, I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. But Christopher Bell could definitely be a threat as well, because he's usually very good. He was both drivers were very good in the Truck Series, and they've been battling very well in the Xfinity Series this year, so I'm probably going to go with them. With the Truck Series, I think it's hard to go against Johnny Sawyer because he is just on fire this year.
Okay. Now, again, looking at your notes, I got one last question for you. As far as the Truck Series, there have only been 3 different winners. In Xfinity, there's only been 3 different winners. Is this a testament to there's just a bunch of top guys, or there's too much parity?
There's a lot of top guys that come in, of course, especially with the Xfinity Series. They'll follow the Cup Series more than the Truck Series will. Drivers like Kyle Busch, which, in my opinion, I don't feel like drivers who have won championships should be in those lower series. I can get it if you just came up in your rookie, or maybe you only been there for 5 years. You want to go back down there to keep that experience, learn something, and then bring it back to the track on Sunday. But they'll do it anyways. Of course, NASCAR and the fans have kind of been like going back and forth on what they can do to limit. And of course, they have limited drivers to a certain number of races in the Truck and Xfinity Series that they can race per year. I know for one point there have been talks about eliminating altogether, and some drivers like Kyle Busch, who even has a team in the Truck Series, he owns his own team down there. He has even threatened to kind of pull his team out if he was not allowed to race in it. So you can say stuff like that. Drivers are not happy about that, and I get that they want to race. They love racing, but I feel like they're taking opportunities away from these drivers. But at the same time, I do hear those drivers in Truck Series and Xfinity Series say that they love racing against the Cup drivers because it gets them an experience to face them when they do get up there.
The top of the game, yeah. And isn't it better for the sport itself, for these smaller levels of racing, to have some of those big names come to their towns?
Yeah, and if you do have these big names, for example, when they had Rockingham out here for the Truck Series, those 2 races, Casey Kane came up here and raced in, and of course he won it. Logano flew out from Texas that night after the Cup Series, came up here to Rockingham and raced in the Truck Series the same day, almost won it. Kyle Larson did the same thing as well. Kyle Larson was actually racing in that time. So I think it does help get attention and viewership to it. In my opinion, though, I gotta say, Truck Series is probably the best series right now in terms of racing. I just love it. I think
best competition.
I think it's just the trucks in general, and it's just a lot of guys you don't know, but you pay more attention to the action rather than your own driver. So I think for me, it's a little more fun to watch.
I compare it to minor league hockey. It's just the guys are more competitive, if you will, because they're not as established, and
they want to make their name.
Exactly. But like you said, there's not going to be a Monster Energy Cup Series next week, so we'll keep track of the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series and come back and let everybody know how that turned out. We do want to mention before we go back to break, though, coming up this Saturday, the SWA is having their second show. This time it's a First Responders Appreciation Show. And doors open at 6. Bell's going to be at 7. Of course, if you're a first responder, all you got to do is show up with an ID showing that's your profession, and you will get in free.
And they're also looking for guys and gals to become like the lumberjacks of one of the matches. I believe it'll be Cruz Bell and Wachi that will be facing off each other. And of course, y'all know who Cruz Bell is. He's one of the coolest guys ever in the ring. So
and was on Live at 5 this past week.
So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. Of course, if you're a first responder, you're welcome to be a part of that match and hang on the outside, make sure everybody stays in the ring.
Which I think will be very cool. And word on the street is there's also going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match. So Be excited to see that. And, of course, that's going to take place at the Richmond County Rescue Squad right down the road here, 1004 Rockingham Road. Again, doors will open at 6. The bell will be rung at 7. So make sure to go out, show your appreciation for all your first responders here in Richmond County. When we come back, we're going to end the show the same way we always do. We're going to do our big impacts of the week, take a look at the RO Sports Show Facebook poll, and finish it up with Love It or Hate It. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the RO Sports Show. And guys, we're going to end it like we always do. We're going to start off with our Big Impacts of the Week presented by Richmond Community College, whose motto is Local College, Big Impact. Let's start with you, Russell. Who you got this week?
Well, I've got Team Lucid. Now, this is an esports Big Impact. Team Lucid was a team that competed at the Richmond Community College's Rocket League tournament. And they won first place. Jordan Lambert, Kate Stewart, and Blaine Robinson shared a $250 cash prize. So congratulations to them.
Hey, esports is still sports. So
yeah.
What you got, Jeremy? Big Impact of the Week.
Congratulations to Richmond County native and linebacker / defensive end for the LA Chargers, Melvin Ingram, for hosting a wonderful 5th annual Melvin Big Fun Day, which was a good turnout for the community to have free hot dogs and food and fellowship to the kids and talk about goodness of football and about life. Congratulations to Melvin.
Absolutely. It's always great when a guy that's got that kind of stature in the NFL to come back and basically spend some of his own money on the community.
Yeah.
So, Bobby, you got Big Impact this week.
Big Impact of the Week is North Carolina Department of Transportation. They reinstated a North Carolina Tar Heel Championship sign that was vandalized or stolen on I-40 in Raleigh.
Yes.
In Wolfpack country.
We've never shouted out the DOT, but of course, big shout out to them because that was one of the Tar Heels national championships. Now, why they put it in Raleigh, I'm not really sure. Almost asking for it a little bit, but nonetheless, whoever stole it, bring it back. Come on. And with that being said, my big impact this week, I know we talked about it a little while ago, but UNC Tar Heels, the only Carolina team, there were 10 of them to start with, but the only team from the Carolinas moving on to the College World Series in Omaha, where they're going to face number 3 overall ranked Oregon State Beavers. Of course, Tar Heels topped, I think they were 6th ranked, so not going to be a pushover by any means, but looking forward to hopefully them getting a championship in the College World Series. Now, as we always
Florida.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go Florida.
All right.
SEC.
Edit that out, Russell. And also, following up like we like to do, we've got our RO Sports Show poll. Of course, we put that up every Monday night. This week, we asked the same question that we were talking about in tonight's first segment. Now that the NBA Finals are over, everyone's going to be asking, where is LeBron going to be playing next season? We asked people to vote on this and comment where they think he might end up. 92% said LeBron's leaving. Only 8% said he's going to stay. A couple people quoted saying that they think he'll go to the Lakers, perhaps the 76ers, a couple teams we mentioned. Another person says that he lives in L.A. That's more time he can spend with family. Plus, I think the temptation to recreate the Showtime Lakers will be too much. So that's a good point, I think. At the same time, it puts a lot of pressure on you, but, maybe he wants to get back to the Magic Johnson, James Worthy days of LA basketball.
So that way he might get a statue when he retired.
But that's part of the thing I was talking about, though. There's so many statues out there. Doesn't that alone bring a lot of pressure to have to follow in Kobe and Shaq and
Kareem? He'll just put a Clippers jersey on.
If you want to make your name, that's where you got to go.
That's true, but hasn't LeBron already made his name?
Yeah.
He wants to really make it. I would
Continue to
he
make
wants
it.
He wants one of those.
He want a statue.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, let's wrap it up with Love It or Hate It. We've got quite a few to go through here, so let's keep them quick if we can. But first off, there's going to be 3 new bowl games coming up in 2020 in NCAA football. I already thought there was too many to begin with, but now 65% of all FBS teams will go bowling. Love it or hate it.
You said it was like 80-something teams? Like
Probably, yeah.
At this point, I don't even really care anymore. So I'll just say love it. It brings football to another area that probably doesn't have a school, and it's a game that's just an extra game for the players at this point.
Okay.
I hate it.
All right.
I'm going to say LOL because I think it's kind of a bit of a joke that they're doing it. So actually, it's going to be a hate it here because it's ridiculous. Too many teams in the bowl series. It's just.
I agree.
ridiculous.
I'm saying hating. I think we're venturing into participation trophy territory. 65% of anything shouldn't be getting in their version of the playoffs. I mean, I think the NBA playoffs was too many to begin with.
They should, instead of adding these extra bowl games, they needed to add more spots to the playoffs.
Exactly.
The one thing is like the reason I just said love it is because there's no use fighting it. Is now since they're not adding spots to the playoffs, most of the stars are just opting not even to play the game.
Well,
so they don't want to get hurt if they're going to go to and have a chance to get drafted anyway.
Now, I will say this. Myrtle Beach is one of the places that's going to be adding one, which I think is cool. They should have one. Maybe you pull one from somewhere else and put one in Myrtle Beach. But, I mean, now you're talking about you're going to have teams that are under 500 making a bowl game. And I understand it's great for those kids and all that, but at some point you have to be able to fight for have a reason to win 6 or 7 games at least to get the bowl
the kids
game.
in Myrtle Beach are going to know they're not at the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
They're not going to be confused.
The beach.
True. Yeah, and at least they're at the beach. You're right. But which I'd rather go to Myrtle Beach than go to Boise or somewhere. No offense to the blue Smurf turf, but anyway, moving on. So Washington Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin. Of course, we talked about earlier. The Capitals won the Stanley Cup this year. Of course, he's been all over the place with the Stanley Cup. I don't think he's been sober since they won. But he got a mulligan after sailing his first pitch at the Washington Nationals game. The first pitch was, quite frankly, just awful. They let him throw another one out there. What do you think? Love it or hate it?
I love it. They should give everybody that second chance, but keep that first one recorded.
Yes. What do you think?
I love it because, hey, I love it.
I'm going to be on the flip here just for fun. I'm going to say hate it because you should have got it right the first time.
It's an athlete, right? Like, I know it's hockey, but come on, man. But I love it, too, just because for me, I think of 50 Cent when he threw out the Mets' first pitch and the thing went in the dugout. They didn't give him another one, but they should have. So, but, that's all in fun and games. Now, not talking about fun and games. Terrell Owens, of course, is getting ready to be in the Hall of Fame, but has turned down the Hall of Fame induction ceremony invitation. Love it or hate it?
I hate it. I mean, it just looks like another smudge on his brilliant career. I mean, he does things like this that stab himself in the foot when he's done his whole career.
What do you think? Love it or hate it? I
hate it because you waited this is your grand opportunity to be inducted to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, to be named one of the greatest players of all time, and you turned down your induction ceremony.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking like, what the world wrong with you?
Yeah. What do you think, Russell?
What if it's like a humble choice, not really wanting to be in the spotlight?
If it wasn't Terrell Owens.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If it was anybody but T.O., I might buy that.
I'm going to say hate it.
As a sick relative, something you could come up with something, but
I'm going to say hate it too because to me, and I hate to say this, but this is typical T.O. right here.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons why I think, quite frankly, he wasn't first ballot because he's had so many rifts with quarterbacks and teammates at different places throughout his career. To me, this is just another, like you said, another thing in the long line of T.O. antics.
His only defense is that for it to be the Hall of Fame, I don't believe he was looking at it being a popularity contest. So he's like, look at my numbers, look what I've done. But at the same time, it's an honor that's bestowed upon you upon your peers. So that's, of course, how you act is going to have something to do with it.
And I'm pretty sure, and if anybody watching can correct us, but he has to be probably the only person that's legitimately turned it down with no legit reason, right?
Yeah, he is the only NFL player in history to do this.
So I think he's just butthurt because he didn't get first ballot. I think it boils down to that. Moving on, talking about LeBron earlier and the Cavs, but of course the Warriors had their title parade and they were really busy trolling LeBron. Now, first of all, they had a golf cart in the middle of the parade that had a big head of LeBron on it. It may have been a crying LeBron, perhaps. Mixture between Michael Jordan and LeBron. The other one was Draymond Green, who's notorious for trolling LeBron. Had the I don't know if you guys remember the Arthur meme that had the balled up fist that LeBron put out on Twitter. Well, Draymond had a T-shirt made up with 3 championship rings on the Arthur fist and had that T-shirt on the parade. But trolling LeBron during your title run, love it or hate it?
All right, here's the thing. Publicly, I hate it. Personally, I love it.
That works. What do you think?
I love it. Hey, this is the opportunity where you can say we beat LeBron in the finals.
All right, love it or hate it.
I'm going to say love it because, I mean, you're a champion. Nobody can touch you now.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
Bragging
almost
rights.
anything you
All
want.
the years that I played sports, though, they coach you to win with dignity.
Exactly.
So that's not doing that,
I was
but
going
I
to go,
love it.
of course, the times have changed, but I was
Well,
going
these
to
are
go
the
the other
fans,
way.
right? Not the players.
I'm going to say hate it because you're champions. Act like champions. Yeah, we all know you beat LeBron. If you want to troll him on social media, do that. But to waste time during your own parade to troll LeBron, like he knows that you beat him. Everybody knows that you beat him. Act like a champion. That's just me.
I like trash talk.
Sure, and I mean I'm all for that too. But I'm kind of more
I
old
still
school.
support the Dixieland Delight chants in Tuscaloosa.
Anyway, moving from NBA back down to the NCAA in basketball, the first bracketologies have come out for the upcoming basketball season, which of course won't start until September, October, somewhere in there. But first bracketology right now has Kansas, Gonzaga, UNC, and Duke as number 1 seeds. So if March Madness started right now, which obviously it's not, but if it did, that would be your 4 number 1 seeds. 2 on Tobacco Road. Love it or hate it.
So far away, I love it.
All right.
I love it because of the way it's lined up.
All right.
I'll say love it, yeah.
I love it too because UNC is in there. I can
That's
do without,
right.
I can
Tar
do without
Heels.
Duke, but Duke lost all 5 players and got 5 top-ranked players back, so that makes sense as well. Of course, Dwayne Casey, going back to the NBA, Dwayne Casey has become the official coach of the Detroit Pistons. I know last week we were talking about maybe University of Michigan coach John Beilein was looking at him. They're also looking at Dwayne Casey that you brought up. He's going to be the man in Detroit. Love it or hate it.
I mean, I love it. How do you not hire the coach who just won the Coach of the Year? So I mean,
Exactly.
and for the Pistons, you got to love it.
All right.
I love it because this is an opportunity for him to rebuild his coaching status again, and he can, all he has to do now is surround talent with Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin.
All right.
I'm going to say love it.
I'm going to say love it too, especially for Detroit, but I also want to precursor this with Toronto. What were you thinking, man?
That part.
Why are you letting Casey go? Moving on, going to NFL. Lamar Jackson, of course, we know by now that he was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and we had talked about this a couple months ago. Could there be an opportunity where we see Lamar line up at other positions besides quarterback? Well, guess what? He's doing that at Ravens practices. So lining up kind of like a shotgun, wildcat, maybe some wide receiver, that sort of thing. Love it or hate it.
For the team, I love it because if you're going to keep past a second quarterback, like if you're going to keep a third one, he needs to be able to do multiple things. I've seen it work with other teams, so I love it for that. Personally, I hate it because it might actually delay his development as a quarterback. I mean, but because because I haven't seen one do multiple positions and then come out to be a good quarterback.
All right.
I love it because this gives Lamar Jackson opportunity for playing time and also learn from Joe Flacco. But I can also see a scenario where, hey, like Bobby was saying, you taking him away from being developed as a true quarterback who could possibly be Joe Flacco's successor.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to say love it.
I'm going to say love it just because, like you said, you made up good points. He gets some playing time. Let's face it, the Ravens' offense has been terrible for the last few seasons. So if this is a way for them to come up with some new things, maybe get the offense moving a little bit with that defense they have, maybe it makes them a playoff team.
He's an athlete.
And then to end it here, we try to end them with some funny things, but baseball talk. The New York Yankees, their Double-A affiliate, also go by the name of the Staten Island Yankees. But for 5 days coming up soon, they will be known as the Staten Island Pizza Rats. Love it or hate it?
Without context, I love it.
All right.
I love it because I think it's funny.
Right.
I hope everybody shows up with not Cheesehead, but Pizza Heads that day. But I'm going to say love it.
I love it because it makes me think of Master Splinter from Ninja Turtles. So anytime, minor league baseball tries to come up with these crazy names and, whatever sells tickets, I suppose.
Right.
But that's going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show. And many, many ways to watch us. You can do it on the RO app, the RichmondObserver.com website. You can also find us on Facebook under the RO Sports Show's official Facebook page. Also go on the Richmond Observer's Facebook page. You can also listen to us on theclassicrockradio.com and the Classic Rock app, and also find us on YouTube on the Richmond Observer's YouTube page. I think that's all of it. If not, there's still a ton of ways to find us, and of course it's all free. So for Bobby Deaver, Jeremy McKenzie, and Russell Parker, I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here next Thursday at 5:30. Have a great week.